as ever, we have Laure Jackson with us, which is brilliant. So thank you for joining us once again. And we've got some good questions. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Looking forward to this very much.
Excellent. Well, let's just jump to the very first question, because it's, if you're watching this video, and I would urge people who are listening, you can watch again, or you can even go to the podcast and listen again later. But on the video, it says this anonymous person, I noticed in the background a small climbing wall. I was wondering, is that anything to do with sensory stuff, or is it just there, I guess, as a sort of playtime thing?
That's so funny. Yes, this is my clinic. I'm a real life treating occupational therapist. It just happens all my Zoom things are in here. But yes, this is my clinic room. So absolutely, climbing walls are a brilliant part of helping facilitate sensory integration. Because you have to do things without seeing. So you put your hands up and you can't, with your eyes, monitor where your whole body is. So that means your brain has to connect with your joints, with your muscles, with all your other senses to get a bearing of whereabouts you are in space. And then obviously the higher you go, you're stimulating the vestibular system, because the vestibular system picks up gravity. And it's really important that we have that connection and that integration with gravity. So yeah, a climbing wall is one of my favorite pieces of equipment. And did they pick up the IKEA spinny chair as well?
No, it was, I'm going to go back to the question. It was just, in the video, I noticed a small climbing wall in the background. Is that anything to do with sensory things? There's a spinny chair as well. No, is that the red one?
It is the red one, yeah.
So what would classically, where would you think, okay, let's go to the climbing wall. What is it you're going to see in summer that you think, okay, this is the tool that I'm going to use to engage better with you, to help you in your needs? What sort of things would typically lead you to the climbing wall?
Yeah. The first one is, the most obvious ones are the clumsy children, or the ones that walk into door frames or walls, or need to put their hands out to steady themselves, or need to hold onto a stair rail. Their balance isn't great. They're trying to put on their trousers and they fall over because they don't have that hip stability. They might drop things. They might not have good hand strength. So handwriting is maybe really weak. So we want to strengthen up those fingers. And by pulling and using their whole body weight to pull themselves up, it strengthens those muscles in the hands. So it's about hands. It's about body awareness. If they're a bit kind of floppy, you'll know this is for adults as well as children. Just the tone, not so good. Maybe tolerance, maybe can't walk for very long, don't have the same stamina. But we also use it for those who are really quite anxious and who might get what we call dysregulated pretty easily and pretty quickly, because you use proprioception. We use the muscles and the joints to help bring down those stress levels, those arousal levels in the system. It's very calming, very organizing, and and if they're whizzing up and down, then they get lots of linear vestibular as well, which is another treatment technique that we would use to help regulate the system and integrate the senses.
Do other people sneak into your room to use the climbing wall? It's a question I have to ask.
You should see all the swings. Someday I shall have all the swings up for you to be able to see for those who watch on video, because they're phenomenal. They are really good, and they're very powerful, very effective for changing the sensory systems.
No, that would be good, actually, if we can have a sort of a tour of the things that you use, because you're going to talk about these things, and I can see some things, but understanding the idea of using a swing, to me, is probably not the swing that you've got, because my idea of a swing is potentially quite different. So it'd be great to see what you're actually using, and the real devices to the names that you're using. Yeah,
because I mean, there's at least 30 swings that I would have for different types of things, according to what I see, the presentation in the individual, according to what their system needs. There's a whole range. Obviously, I really do like normal swings. The swings in a play park, absolutely brilliant. If you've got one, get one. Or if you've got one, use it. If you haven't got one inside, that might be something to consider hanging off your door frame. They're a beautiful piece of equipment.
Some people collect stamps and hats, and you collect swings. Here's something I didn't know was a thing to collect.
Yeah. My room upstairs is full of them. Yeah, lycra swings that give you a really good squeeze and a squish, and yeah, tube tire swings, inner tires of tractors that you can flop over and hang on and hang over, and then you've got big long flat boards that you can lie on and swing yourself when you're lying flat. It's it's great. Sensory integration is all about fun, because that's how our brain develops best, when it's relaxed, when it's enjoying itself, when it's not threatened by the senses around it or anything else. When our body and our brains are in a happy place, there are lovely things that happen.
Is that a sort of, well, this is my badly worded version, but is that kind of a distraction therapy sort of idea, that if you're doing one thing, you can train your body to do something different? Is that a really clumsy way of saying it?
That's a brilliant way of saying it. No, that's it, again, in its simplest form. We're very good at finding the simple ways of explaining.
I'm good things. At that.
Exactly. That our brain can process things, because a lot of sensory processing, it is subconscious. That's why when anybody calls themselves stupid or lazy or an idiot or all those things, all those negative things that can be said, that we can say over ourselves, it's just like, no. That's why I love it. When we can find if there are sensory issues, it's none of that. It is about your brain, and your brain isn't as content processing, so it gets in the way of things.
Wow. Spinny chair.
I'm just thinking, sorry, I was just a pause there, actually. I can hear the ambulance in the background.
Can you?
That's why I paused.
You couldn't hear it. Not really.
Right, okay, because I was on a really good flow then. But
no, keep going. It's fine.
What? Tell me that question again, because it was like...
Oh, it was about how you're using distraction to help someone to deal with another part of their sensory issues.
Okay, so I might go over that, but again, we'll wait and see. But see what you can edit with doing this.
It's fine.
But yeah, distraction is a brilliant part of exactly what we do in therapy, because it is all on a subconscious level. It's not clever things that we say to ourselves to make ourselves be more coordinated. So the names that we say, like being stupid or calling yourself an idiot or being lazy, none of that relates to sensory processing. That's all stuff that comes when you are consciously aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. Sensory processing is a much, much lower brain processing issue. It's not a evolutionary thing. It is just a lower brain processing, that there are things that just happen in the background that's been designed for us to function at that level. And then we can put those higher order thinking and coordination and just academic stuff on top of that. So yeah, sensory processing is absolutely subconscious at this brainstem level. So therefore, using something that uses that cognition, uses higher brain processing like a distraction, is brilliant, because then the thinking brain is happy trying to work something out. But the subconscious, the sensory processing parts of it, they're really happy because they can just work away, because the cognitive brain isn't getting in the way, is happy doing something else. So the brain is able to integrate itself. So that, yeah, it is actually a really, really good treatment technique, that we focus on doing something that they're motivated, that they want to do, that takes their attention on something to let the processing happen spontaneously.
Sort of a bit like, I would think, a painkiller for a muscle, so you can exercise without the pain preventing you from doing the exercise. That's sort of the same sort of idea, because if the pain's in the way, you can't, like I had a bad back years ago and I couldn't do a stretch because of the pain. So the painkillers reduce the pain in order to do the exercise to get past that pain threshold. And then eventually the muscle's working again and the painkillers aren't needed. So I'm guessing in a similar prescription drug kind of way, this is what some of your tools are doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. I like simple. I can work with simple. I'm good at that. So the spinny chair, where would that come in?
Right. So spinning is a really interesting one. Spinning can be really disorganizing. Anybody who has a sensitive vestibular system will know that they will avoid roller coasters, or if they go on a boat, they're going to get seasick. There we go. Car sick. Cautious, may even stay away from escalators, won't go up escalators because it's a funny kind of whole movement thing. So yeah, anybody who's cautious of movement has something likely to be going on with the vestibular system. Now, it could be their eyes, it could be their ears, it could be other things, but the vestibular system is the most basic system to work with. So that chair behind, it spins round on an axis. So it's quite safe because you only spin in this direction or that direction. So again, if I may go into a little bit of the neuroscience, if that's all right, the vestibular system has 3 semicircular canals, all at different orientations and different planes. It's a bit like a gyroscope. So whichever way our head is tilted, it's able to be picked up by our semicircular canals. And if we're going up and down or back and forth, all these linear movements are picked up by utricle and saccule, which are in the base of those vestibular units. So with any way that the head tilts or moves is picked up. So this one is for that rotation, but it's nice because it's in one plane. There are some people who will find that absolutely awful because they're overreactive to vestibular input. So we need to train it to be able to cope and get less sick, basically, with things. And then you've got others who are underreactive, and you can spin and spin and spin, and they will spin and spin and spin themselves for ages and not get dizzy. That is also not good because the brain should register that movement. It could be that those ones are very flighty. They are not grounded in the best sense of the word. They don't know where they are in space. They're here, there, everywhere. It's like, oh, we just need to, help you know who you are and where you are in space. And that's what the vestibular system is there for. It is like, you know, those maps that you see if you're out in a town somewhere and it's just like, you are here and there's an arrow. That is what the vestibular system does. It's kind of like, oh, this is where I am. This is my body. This is where I am in space. Because some people talk about floating away. I do a little bit of therapy and it's like, oh, I feel as though I might float if we do this for too long. So it's just like, okay, well, let's do something different. Let's help, settle your system and work with it. So yeah, it's like being an astronaut. It really is. The vestibular system is powerful in the way that we perceive space and gravity and things like that. So we need to treat it in a very particular and a careful way. But going back to the spinny chair, some people will absolutely love it, and it will just help people if they can have a spinny chair, some people in their houses, so that their individuals, children or adults, can just sit and spin. Obviously, this one's a smaller one, but you can get these lovely hammock type things indoors in garden centres around the place. And on the Amazon website or Amazon header of my website, there's lots of options there for people to go and choose if they just want to have a look. So if you go to Amazon and then go to vestibular, you'll see all the different types of swings that are available and spinny things and movie things that might be helpful.
Oh, that's really cool. I'm really excited about that. Right, let's go to another question that came in. So again, anonymous. I work with a very diverse group of people who may have ADHD, autism, learning difficulties, brain injury, anxiety issues, to name just a few of the challenges. I've heard of the benefits of Lego therapy, i.e. allowing a person or encouraging a person to build something with Lego whilst in an appointment in order to help them talk or relax. I also remembered when Richard Hammond from Top Gear had a car accident and he was encouraged to build Lego as part of his recovery for brain injury. In fact, he's been reported to say, quote, Lego saved my life. So I wondered about this for the people that I work with and how it could be used. I would really like to hear your thoughts on this, Anne. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. So Lego is absolutely brilliant. I'm not sure about the link between Lego and speech, movement and speech, absolutely, because that's why fairgrounds are the most noisy places out there, because people scream, people talk, they're very alerting because of movement. Movement alerts the brain, so it spontaneously just gives off speech We start to speak when we move. So those two are a definite and a clinically researched combination of movement enhancing speech. Lego is just superb for loads of different cognitive, those thinking processes, and the fine motor skills, and an element of the distraction that you were talking about, because it's something pleasurable to do while the brain heals. If it's a brain injury, then it's very logical, it's very specific, but it's also creative at the same time. It demands loads of different things from the brain and the body, apart from the fact that it's very static. So as a sensory therapist, a sensory integration therapist, a lot of my work would be more movement based, but I would use Lego while doing something, or I would use Lego while sitting on a peanut ball or a gym ball, so that we get...
What ball? Peanut?
A peanut ball.
Okay, well, hang on. What's a peanut ball?
Oh, peanut ball looks like a peanut.
Oh, okay.
It's big. You sit on it, you straddle it like a big chair. I don't have it down here. But it literally is, if for those of you on video, like you really will have to go and watch the videos for this. It literally is the shape of a peanut. So it's massive, or it can be massive. It's about like 60 centimeters up to 1 meter high, but it has a dip in the middle. So if you place it lengthways, you can imagine there's a dip, a bit like a horse. If you're going to sit not side saddle, but just going to saddle a horse, you would put your legs over the saddle. And that's exactly what happens with peanut ball. So it's really stable for those who might be a little bit unsure about their balance, but it does move and it is inflatable so that there's a little bit of give in it. And that's so good for developing those postural adjustments that we need to make while focusing on Lego. So again, using something that you really enjoy, because Lego is just brilliant and it is so fun, while working on the body in rehabilitation.
Sorry, I spoiled your flow, but it was that peanut ball. I'm thinking, what's that about? Peanut chair. This is great. I love some of these. Yes, we're going to have to do like a proper little tour of some of these things, because they sound great. So what can you just help us understand some of these difficulties, because some of these are terms and words that we perhaps sort of throw around, or yeah I know what that is, but we don't actually know. So what would be the differences, or how would you sort of talk about ADHD and autism, which are two of the ones that I'll pick out?
Right, yeah. Autism has gone through a little bit of a I was going to call it a rebrand. I'm not quite sure that's quite the right terminology, but it's changing. It used to be purely about the social and communication aspects of things and the concrete thinking, but it has been extended, thankfully, into also recognizing that there are sensory processing issues, normally in this modulation side of it. That's what so far the community and the diagnostic manuals have picked up. So they are talking about the overreactivity and the underreactivity. Obviously, from my perspective, there's more to it, because there's a whole body side of it, and there's a whole discrimination side of it. So generally, it's more those who are, we've got those social communication and specific ways of thinking that are more the autistic side of things. The ADHD, being the attention deficit hyperactivity side of things, has a massive sensory underpinning to it. But it is about that distractibility. It's about the impulsivity. It's about the inability to focus on certain things, but they can be very good at focusing on what they want to. Potentially disorganisation. And there's lots of crossover. I am talking generalities, and please forgive me if anybody is out there listening and thinking, oh, but it's so much more. And I'm thinking, it is. I'm just trying to put it in generality so that it's easier to see. Social communication, more autism, more the attention hyperactivity or lack of it, and impulsivity, just attention and focus issues for the ADHD, combined with sensory processing, dyspraxia, which is much more the body side of things. That there then becomes an overlap of whole range of different types of boxes that we choose to put people in.
Okay, let me just come back on this one then, because you're talking, we think about ADHD, for example, And you use the word hyperactive, which is the bit that I would, as someone who doesn't know about it, I think ADHD, that's hyperactivity. That's what I instantly think of, which is why I was saying, can you just help us out? But there's a couple of times you've said either too much or too little. So, for example, you said someone can spin too much, and actually, if it's not bothering them, actually, that's also a bad thing, because they can spin more than they should be able to. In the same way you said ADHD actually could be under activity. So, how can you sort of explain that one for me a little bit?
I'll focus on the sensory, because you're probably better to get an ADHD expert to explain those, because there are certain parts of the brain that we don't deal with in sensory processing that are very much the ADHD parts of the brain that are affected, which don't get impacted by sensory processing. But the under registration and the over registration, it's a similar concept regardless. But it's like, for us, I had a mum a couple of weeks ago who we've been working together for over a year. And finally, she was celebrating that her son finally got sick. You know, he was on the roundabout, but she understood, because he would not. He was one of these flighty ones who would be here, there, and everywhere. But finally, he's not needing the same amount of input as he used to. I mean, he would spend like hours. We're talking hours at doing things and spinning and upside down and on the go and so on. And his whole system is settling. It is registering that input now that it wasn't before, because it was under reactive. So he was wanting so much. And it was just like, right, okay, we need to get the right input in, the correct timings, the amount of time that he needs. And he's just gone from, leaps and bounds. But it was lovely. Not a normal thing that you'd be happy to hear that somebody's actually been sick and, and vomited, but it's just like, hallelujah, we've actually got registration now that he's feeling it, he's sensing it, he's discriminating it, and it's having an impact. So he's not doing those things as much anymore, because he's able to pull back and just enjoy the experiences, but is starting to register that actually we ought to be getting sick, for certain things, because it really isn't. Yeah, it's good that he's registering what he's registering. That's all I can say.
Yeah. On that one, how long has that taken you to take that child from coming to you, is there a problem, through to we've actually got a success in that he's now registering what he didn't? What sort of time span would that take?
Yeah, for him, it was about a year, 3 months. Now, for some, it can be 6 weeks. I would say that's the earliest. We can start working, as far as registration is concerned. That's personally what I've experienced. Now, naturally, this is because I have an online consultation. It's very much in the hands of what the families are prepared to do, what they're able to do, what they can afford to do. So I just point them in the right direction and know the kind of principles that they need to be doing. And then they fit it into their everyday life, because I just think life is stressful enough. You just need to know enough of what is good for their systems and find a way that makes life enjoyable for you and that is fun for everybody involved. So that's where, when I'm in clinic, I can obviously speed things up a bit, because I have all this lovely equipment and they can swing from my frame and they can climb up my walls and do all kinds of things and crash in my ball pits and crash pads. But for families, it's like, what is out there in the community that is going to give you this sensory input that you need? So, but yeah, if we know if we know we are heading in the right direction, it doesn't matter in some ways how long it takes. It's just lovely when it actually gets there, because we know we will get there if we've got a sensory processing issue. And that's part of the importance of having a good assessment. Whereas with this chappie, it was obvious that there was vestibular work that needed to be done.
Well, that comes back to something you've said a few times, that it's helping people where they're at in their own life, because they can come to you and you've got things they will never have a hope of having. Yeah. But trying to find things in their own environment that they can use and continue to use and onwardly use means it's not just this is what you said before, it's not about a sticking plaster, it's about that long-term solution, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I'm hoping in time also. I did a bit a few years ago about looking at the community and the types of clubs, assessing them. So I think I'll be going back to those, taking videos, explaining why gymnastics is so good, why rowing is so good, why rock climbing, and just a whole load of everyday activities that people can do and dissect it for them from a sensory perspective so that I can do the thinking and they can do the applying to their family.
Fabulous. I so love doing these. I'm finding this rewarding and encouraging, and it's educational. And I'm hoping that others are finding that. And I know they are, because I get the comments back from people saying this is so good. They really, really are fascinated by what you're saying and how you're helping people. I mean, we've already helped. What is it? A guy with brain trauma from brain cancer. We've helped him with that one. But the one that I was thinking about was this repetitive thing that I saw, and it was a guy. It wasn't dementia, but he'd had it was a very specific form of brain cancer, which then mimicked the symptoms of quite aggressive onset dementia. But one of the things they found is if he can be given a job where he can repetitively do something, it really calmed him and stilled him, because it was something he could easily achieve. It was something static because he was in the same place. And we did some hedges. I went and trimmed some hedges. And his job then was, because we had to, was to trim all those hedges short enough to go in the bin. And that's what he did. And he just stayed there for ages and ages and ages. And he was much calmer. So how is that? Not what's the science, because that's going to go beyond me, but how does that help him to be calmer when he's doing something that I would get frustrated by because it's repeating? That's the bit I get a bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Oh, it's brilliant. And that is why I think we need to be pairing. When I work with adults, it's about pairing how their systems are with the work that is out there. Because when we get a match like that, it is brilliant. But I'll go back to why it's so good. Lots of reasons. First and foremost has to be the physical nature. Presumably he was holding something to cut the hedges, or he was clipping or cutting.
I think it was branches that we'd cut, and then he had some secateurs, and he was just cutting them so they could go. They were smaller to actually go inside a bin.
Yeah. So what he'll be doing is proprioceptive work. So muscle work, heavy muscle work in particular. And if he had to lift things up and put them down, he's using his body, whereas most of us are desk-based. Lots of us are desk-based. So we're really not. I mean, it doesn't take much to move a mouse. So anytime we can get somebody out in the garden, physically doing something is going to increase the amount of proprioceptive input. Proprioception is an absolute godsend. Like, it's a phenomenal sensory experience and input for calming, for organizing the body, for alerting it when it needs to. Just such lovely input, but primarily a calming focus. So if you go for a walk for an hour or two ourselves, that there's a satisfaction when you come back and you sit down and you get your cup of tea, and it's a fulfillment of having used those muscles effectively. And it's the same for anything that we can do where we can get muscle involvement. The other side of it for him is that there is with knowing what is expected of him and having it really clear, then anxiety reduces, and they have the satisfaction of being able to do a good job because they know what a good job looks like. They know the height of the hedge. They know how small the bits have to be cut up in order to be taken away or whatever. So that's very nice. And they can see that they're using all their senses to bring it all together. And it makes you feel good. So I do think having that repetitiveness is really important. And that's where, when it comes to, as I said before, with finding a job, we have to find a job that fits their sensory thumbprint in order for them to be able to continue to do that on a daily basis. But I think those are exactly the types of jobs that we need, those who love that, because it would not bring me joy, I have to say. And I'm glad to... It probably doesn't you either. But for some people, it is. It's like, yes, I love this variety of who we are and how we are. And it's just finding, we're all parts of the same body, aren't we? It's just finding which bits of the body we fit in best, which bits of society that we fit in best to bless society, make us function as well as we can.
Fantastic. Well, thank you as ever. It's been a pleasure and delight yet again. But more next week. If you want to watch this again, this will be on YouTube. It'll also be on our website on the catch up, and it'll be on podcast, so you can listen to this or you can watch it to your heart's content. Thank you, Anne. Just give us your website once again.
AnneLauraJackson.com.
And you can get everything you need from there, which is great. You mentioned stuff on Amazon. They were like, yes. Is that a link from your website?
Yeah, if you look at the header on the website, it just says Amazon, kind of basic. And in there, there's books, there's things, the touch system, the visual system, all the senses. I've organised it into pots, so you can just go and have a look, just get inspiration from it. If you don't want to buy it from there, just get inspiration and go and find something locally that you might want to get instead. But they're pre-selected resources that are just lovely for feeding into the sensory systems.
Because you've done the hard work of working out what is good. There you go. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
Have a great week. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.